The FBI agent's hand was on Karen's shoulder, and I watched her perfectly made-up face crumble as he said the words that would change everything. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud." Behind them, Barbara stood with her arms crossed, a satisfied smile on her face. "But let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 months earlier, when I thought buying my dream home would be the happiest day of my life. My name is Marcus Chun, and I'm a 34-year-old software engineer. After years of saving every penny, living in cramped apartments, and eating ramen more nights than I'd like to admit, I finally had enough for a down payment on a house. Not just any house, a beautiful 3-bedroom Craftsman in Riverside Estates, a community I'd been admiring since I moved to town 5 years ago. The house was perfect. Original hardwood floors, a renovated kitchen with granite countertops, and a backyard that backed up to a small creek. The asking price was $375,000, and after some negotiation, the seller, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, who was moving to assisted living, agreed to $350,000. I could barely contain my excitement as I signed the purchase agreement in early April 2024. The HOA seemed like a bonus rather than a burden. The neighborhood was immaculate, with tree-lined streets, well-maintained common areas, and a community center with a pool. The monthly dues were only $225, which seemed reasonable for all the amenities. During my walkthrough, I'd met a few neighbors who all seemed friendly enough. But I hadn't met Karen yet. Karen Mitchell lived 3 houses down from my soon-to-be new home. She was a real estate agent, though not a particularly successful one from what I'd later learn. At 49 years old, she'd been living in Riverside Estates for 12 years and had developed an inflated sense of ownership over the neighborhood. She had short, severely styled blonde hair, always wore too much makeup, and had a way of looking at people like they were beneath her. I first encountered Karen 2 weeks before my closing date. I'd stopped by the house to take some measurements for furniture, and she was standing in my driveway when I arrived. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone making it clear she thought I was the one who shouldn't be there. "I'm Marcus Chun. I'm buying this house. Closing is in 2 weeks. I extended my hand. She didn't shake it. Instead, she looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Buying this house?" "Yes, ma'am." "Is there a problem?" "Well, it's just... unexpected." She pursed her lips. "This is a very established neighborhood. We have certain... standards." I felt my jaw tightened, but I kept my voice even. "I'm sure I'll fit in just fine. If you'll excuse me, you should know," she interrupted, stepping closer, "that Mrs. Patterson and I had an understanding. This house was supposed to go to my daughter. We had a verbal agreement." "Well, I have a written purchase agreement and a mortgage approval," I replied. "So, unless there's something legally binding I'm not aware of, I'll be moving in on May 15th. Her eyes narrowed into slits. "We'll see about that." I should have taken that threat more seriously. Over the next 2 weeks, strange things started happening. My realtor, Jennifer, called to say the title company had received an anonymous complaint questioning my financial credentials. Then the home inspector reported that someone had called him claiming to be me and trying to cancel the inspection. My mortgage officer received a letter supposedly from Mrs. Patterson. She was having second thoughts about the sale. Each time, we traced the interference back to dead ends, but I knew who was behind it. Karen had made her intentions clear. The real chaos began 3 days before closing. I received a frantic call from Jennifer at 7:30 in the morning. "Marcus, we have a serious problem. The title company found another purchase agreement for your house." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, another agreement?" "Someone filed paperwork claiming they have a contract to purchase Mrs. Patterson's house, dated a week before yours. The seller is listed as Karen Mitchell, and the buyer is someone named Ashley Mitchell." "That's her daughter," I said, my mind racing. "But how is that possible? Mrs. Patterson never mentioned any other offers." "That's what we're trying to figure out. Mrs. Patterson is adamant she never signed anything with Karen. But the document has her signature." "Can we see it?" "I'm sending it over now." "But Marcus, This could delay or even cancel your closing. If this other contract is legitimate and predates yours, they have priority." I hung up and immediately opened the email. The document looked official, a standard real estate purchase agreement with all the right legal language. Mrs. Patterson's signature was at the bottom, right next to Karen's and Ashley's. The date was April 2nd, 9 days before I'd signed my agreement. But something was off. I'd been in tech long enough to know my way around digital documents, and this one had some telltale signs of manipulation. The signature line looked slightly pixelated, as if it had been copied and pasted from another document. The date font was a slightly different size than the rest of the text. I called Jennifer back. "This is a forgery. I'm almost certain. I hope you're right, but we need proof, and we need it fast." That's when I decided to go to the HOA. If anyone knew the inner workings of this neighborhood and had the resources to help, it would be them. I looked up the HOA board information on the Riverside Estates website and found that the president was someone named Barbara Henderson. I called the number listed, and a warm, professional voice answered. "Barbara Henderson, speaking. Ms. Henderson, my name is Marcus Chun. I'm supposed to close on a house in Riverside Estates in 3 days, but there's been a problem. I think someone is trying to steal the sale through fraud." "Come to my house in an hour," she said without hesitation. "Bring every document you have." Barbara's home was a beautiful colonial at the entrance to the neighborhood. She answered the door in business casual attire, slacks, and a cream-colored blouse. She was in her mid-50s, with shoulder-length auburn hair starting to gray at the temples, and sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Come in, Marcus. Let's see what we're dealing with." I spread all my documents across her dining room table: my purchase agreement, mortgage approval, inspection reports, and the suspicious document claiming Karen's daughter had a prior contract. Barbara studied everything carefully, her expression growing darker as she examined Karen's paperwork. After 20 minutes, she sat back and removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "This is forged," she said flatly. "And I can prove it." "How?" "Because I was there when Mrs. Patterson decided to sell. She called me in March to ask about HOA regulations regarding estate sales. She never mentioned Karen or any verbal agreements. In fact, she specifically said she wanted to avoid selling to anyone in the neighborhood because she didn't want to show favoritism." Barbara pulled out her phone and scrolled through her messages. She texted me on March 28th, saying she'd found a Barawan was excited about the sale going to someone who would love the house as much as she did. "Can we use this?" "Absolutely. But there's more." Barbara stood and went to a filing cabinet, pulling out a folder. "Karen tried this before." "What?" 2 years ago, the Johnsons were selling their house at the end of Maple Street. Karen claimed she had a right of first refusal based on some conversation she'd had with them at a barbecue. She couldn't prove it, and the sale went through to someone else, but she made everyone's life miserable for months. She filed complaints with the HOA, tried to get the new buyers kicked out over false violations, the whole 9 yards. So she has a history of this. "Oh, it gets better." Barbara pulled out more papers, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Karen's real estate license was suspended 3 years ago for 6 months due to ethics violations. Something about misrepresenting property conditions to buyers. She's been on thin ice with the State Real Estate Commission ever since. Why would she risk trying this fraud then? Barbara leaned against the table, her arms crossed. "Because she's desperate. Her daughter Ashley is about to be evicted from her apartment. She owes $17,000 in back rent. Karen's been trying to find her a house for months, but Ashley has terrible credit and no money for a down payment. When Mrs. Patterson decided to sell, Karen saw an opportunity to forge documents and steal a house." "Exactly, and she almost got away with it. If you hadn't noticed the irregularities and come to me, the title company might have honored that fake contract." I felt sick. "What do we do?" Barbara smiled, and there was steel in it. "We fight back. And we document everything. Because this isn't just fraud, this is a federal crime." Over the next 2 days, Barbara became my guardian angel. She contacted Mrs. Patterson directly, and got a notarized statement that she had never signed any agreement with Karen. She pulled HOA records showing Karen had been accused of similar schemes before. She even found the original document that Karen had likely copied Mrs. Patterson's signature from a HOA covenant agreement from 2 years ago. But the most damning evidence came from Barbara's tech-savvy son, who analyzed the metadata on the forged document. It had been created on Karen's home computer on April 18th, 6 days after I'd already signed my legitimate purchase agreement. "This is enough to involve law enforcement," Barbara said on the morning of May 14th. "One day before my scheduled closing, but I want you to be prepared for what comes next. Karen won't go down without a fight." "I'm ready," I said, though my hands were shaking. Barbara made the call to the local police, who immediately contacted the FBI since wire fraud and real estate fraud fall under federal jurisdiction. Within hours, 2 FBI agents, Special Agent Rodriguez and Special Agent Kim, were sitting in Barbara's dining room, reviewing our evidence. "This is solid," Agent Rodriguez said, nodding slowly. "We'll need to verify a few things, but if this checks out, Ms. Mitchell is looking at serious federal charges." "How serious?" I asked. "Wire fraud carries up to 20 years. Identity theft, another 15. Real estate fraud, up to 30. They'd likely run concurrent, but still she's looking at significant prison time if convicted." That night, I could barely sleep. My closing was supposed to happen at 10 the next morning, but I had no idea if it would actually go through. What if Karen had filed additional paperwork? What if she convinced someone her document was real? Barbara called me at 7 in the morning. "The FBI is executing a search warrant on Karen's house right now. Get dressed and meet me at the title company at 9. We're closing this deal today." When I arrived at the title company, Jennifer was already there, looking frazzled but relieved. "The FBI confirmed the forgery. Karen's contract has been officially invalidated. We're clear to close." I wanted to cry with relief, but there was one more thing I needed to know. "Where's Karen now?" Barbara, who had just walked in, smiled grimly. "That's the best part. The FBI found everything drafts of the forged document, practice versions of Mrs. Patterson's signature, emails between Karen and Ashley planning the whole scheme. They found evidence she'd tried this scam on 2 other properties in different states. She's not just facing charges for what she did to you. Is she under arrest? Not yet, but the door to the title company burst open. Karen stormed in, her face red with fury, Ashley trailing behind her, looking scared and confused. "This closing is illegal," Karen shrieked, pointing at me. "That house is my daughter's." "I have a contract." Barbara stepped forward, and I noticed she was holding her phone, recording. "Karen, I'd advise you to leave before you make this worse for yourself." "Worse, you stucker." Karen's voice rose to a screech. "You've always had it out for me. This is discrimination. I'll sue the HOA. I'll sue him." She jabbed a finger at me. "That house is mine." That's when the door opened again, and Special Agent Rodriguez walked in, his badge clearly visible on his belt. "Karen Mitchell, S.A.D." calmly. Karen spun around, her face going from red to white in an instant. "Yes, ma'am, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud." He moved toward her, handcuffs ready. "You have the right to remain, ... I watched, frozen in place, as Karen's legs seemed to give out beneath her. Ashley started crying, and Barbara, ... Barbara just stood there with her arms crossed, that same satisfied smile on her face that I'd see in my memory forever. But what happened next? Did Karen actually go to jail? Did I finally get my house? And what did Ashley know about her mother's scheme? Let me know if you're ready for part 2, where everything gets even crazier. If you've ever dealt with someone trying to steal what's rightfully yours, drop a comment below. Have you ever caught someone in a lie this big? What would you have done in my situation? The truth was darker than any of us imagined, and Karen's arrest was just the beginning. What's your opinion? Don't forget to leave a comment below. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through the title company office, and I watched Karen's face transform from rage to shock to pure terror in the span of 3 seconds. Special Agent Rodriguez was reading her Miranda rights, his voice steady and professional, while his partner, Agent Kim, stood by the door blocking any escape route. Asha had collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, mascara streaming down her face. Barbara stood next to me, her arms still crossed, watching the scene unfold with the calm satisfaction of someone who had seen justice coming from miles away. Jennifer, my realtor, was white as a sheet, her hand covering her mouth. The title company employees had all backed away from their desks, wide-eyed and whispering. "This is a mistake," Karen screamed, trying to pull away from Agent Rodriguez. "I didn't do anything. That contract is real. Never, Senora. Patterson signed it." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Agent Rodriguez said calmly. "I'd suggest you exercise that right." "Mom," Ashley wailed from her chair. "Mom, what did you do?" Karen's head whipped toward her daughter. "Shut up, Ashley! Don't say anything. Not a word." But it was too late. Agent Kim had already moved toward Ashley, pulling out a small notepad. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to need to ask you some questions. You're not under arrest, but I need to know what you knew about this contract." Ashley looked up at him, her face blotchy and red. I didn't know anything was wrong. "Ma'am said Mrs. Patterson wanted to sell the house to us." "She said it was all arranged. I never saw any documents until yesterday." "Ashley," Kara shrieked. "Don't talk to them without a lawyer." Agent Rodriguez tightened his grip on Karen's arm. "Ma'am, final warning. You need to calm down, or we'll add resisting arrest to your charges." Karen finally went quiet, but her eyes were filled with pure hatred as she stared at me. Then her gaze shifted to Barbara, and if looks could kill, we'd both be dead on the floor. "This is your fault," Karen hissed at Barbara. "You've had it out for me since the day I moved here. You've always thought you were better than everyone else, with your perfect house and your perfect life. You couldn't stand that I was successful, that I had connections, that people actually liked me." Barbara's expression didn't change. She just looked at Karen with something between pity and disgust. "I've never thought about you at all, Karen. Not until you started breaking the law in my neighborhood." Agent Rodriguez started leading Karen toward the door. "Let's go, Ms. Mitchell. We have a car waiting outside." As they passed, Karen lunged toward me, despite the handcuffs. "You don't deserve that house. You'll never fit in here. This neighborhood isn't for people like you." Agent Rodriguez pulled her back firmly. "That's enough." And then they were gone. Through the glass door, I could see Karen being placed in the back of a black sedan. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, neighborhood residents who had seen the FBI vehicles and come to investigate. I wondered how many of them knew what Karen had done. How many of them had been her victims before? Inside, Agent Kim was still talking to Ashley in a low voice. After a few minutes, he handed her his card. "If you think of anything else, call me. And Ms. Mitchell, you might want to get your own attorney. Your mother's legal troubles don't have to be yours." Ashley nodded numbly, clutching the card like a lifeline. She looked at me, and I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really didn't know. I thought this was finally my chance to have something nice. I didn't know she was lying. I didn't know what to say to that." Part of me felt sorry, for Hershey was clearly a victim of her mother's schemes too. But another part of me couldn't forget that she would have moved into my house if Karen's plan had worked. Barbara saved me from having to respond. "Ashley, you should go home. And you should probably start looking for a new place to live. Your mother's bail is going to be substantial. If she gets bail at all, she won't be able to help you with your rent situation." Ashley's face crumpled again, and she hurried out of the office, still crying. Agent Kim turned to me, and Barbara, "I'll need formal statements from both of you. Can you come to the federal building tomorrow morning? Say 9 o'clock? We both agreed. He nodded, shook our hands, and left. The title company office was silent for a long moment. Then Jennifer let out a huge breath and actually laughed. Well, that was the most dramatic closing I've ever been to, and I once had a buyer punch a seller over a broken dishwasher. "Can we still close today?" I asked, suddenly terrified that all this drama had derailed everything. Jennifer grinned. "Absolutely. The FBI cleared the forged contract. Let's get you into your house." The actual closing took about an hour. I signed what felt like 1,000 documents, my hand cramping by the end. But when Jennifer handed me the keys to my new home, I nearly cried with relief. It was finally real. After everything Karen had done to sabotage me, I was still getting my house. Barbara waited while I finished all the paperwork, and when we walked out together, she turned to me with a serious expression. "Marcus, I need to be honest with you about something." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "Karen has friends in this neighborhood. Not many, but a few. People who think, like she does, people who are going to be angry that you got her arrested." She made air quotes with her fingers. "They're not going to see it as justice. They're going to see it as you being an outsider who ruined one of their own." "What are you saying? That I'm not safe here?" "I'm saying you need to be prepared for some hostility. Keep your security cameras on. Document any harassment. And if anyone from the HOA tries to fine you for violations, you call me immediately. I won't let them run you out of your own home." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Do you really think they'd try something?" Barbara's expression was grim. "I've been HOA president for 8 years. Marcus, I've seen what people are capable of when they feel their territory is threatened. Just be careful, okay?" I moved into my new house 3 days later. The first night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound, but nothing happened. The neighborhood was quiet. My immediate neighbors, a retired couple on one side, and a young family on the other, both came by to welcome me with baked goods and friendly smiles. They'd heard about what happened with Karen, and they were firmly on my side. That woman's been a menace for years. The retired husband, whose name was George, told me over coffee on my back porch. She tried to get us fined for having our grandkids' toys in our yard, said it was lowering property values. The HOA threw out the complaint, but she made our lives hell for months afterward. She told the HOA our fence was 6 inches over the property line. The young mom next door, Rachel, added, "We had to pay for a professional survey to prove it wasn't. Cost us $1,200 just to defend ourselves from her lies." As the days passed, more neighbors came forward with their own Karen horror stories. She'd filed noise complaints against families with young children. She'd reported people for parking violations that didn't exist. She'd even tried to get someone evicted for having too many guests during a funeral reception. I started to realize that I wasn't just the latest in a long line of Karen's victims. Might be the one who finally stopped her. 2 weeks after the arrest, I got a call from Agent Kim. "Mr. Chun, I wanted to update you on the case. Karen Mitchell has been formally charged with 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of identity theft, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit real estate fraud." "What does that mean for sentencing?" "If convicted on all counts, she's looking at 20 to 30 years in federal prison. Her attorney is pushing for a plea deal, but given the evidence and her prior record, the prosecution isn't inclined to be generous." "Her prior record? You mean the real estate license suspension?" "That, and the 2 other properties we discovered she tried to defraud. 1 in Nevada, 1 in Arizona. Those cases are being prosecuted separately. Ms. Mitchell has been running variations of this scam for at least 5 years. I felt sick. How many people did she hurt? We're still investigating. But you should know you're the reason we caught her. If you hadn't noticed those irregularities in the document, if you hadn't gone to Mrs. Henderson, Karen might have succeeded, and she would have kept doing it." After we hung up, I sat on my new couch in my new living room, looking around at the home I'd almost lost. The hardwood floors gleamed in the afternoon sun. Through the window, I could see my backyard and the creek beyond it. Tease was meaning. I'd earned it, saved for it, and fought for it. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. When I opened it, Barbara was standing there with a bottle of wine and a genuine smile. "Thought you might need this," she said, holding up the bottle, "and I wanted to officially welcome you to the neighborhood. The right way this time." I invited her in, and we sat in my living room, drinking wine and talking about everything except Karen. She told me about the neighborhood history, about the best places to eat nearby, about the community events I should look forward to. She was warm and friendly and nothing like the stern, formal person I'd first met in crisis mode. "Can I ask you something?" I said after my second glass. "Why did you help me?" "You didn't know me. You could have stayed out of it." Barbara set down her glass and looked at me seriously. "Because it was the right thing to do. And because I've watched Karen torment good people in this neighborhood for too long. Someone had to stop her. I'm just glad it finally happened." "Well, thank you. I wouldn't have this house without you." She smiled. "You would have found a way. You're resourceful, but I'm glad I could help." As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "Oh, I almost forgot. The next HOA meeting is in 2 weeks. You should come. There are a few people I want you to meet. People who'll have your back." "Are there still people who are angry about Karen's arrest?" Barbara's expression darkened slightly. "Yes. And they're going to make noise at the meeting. But don't worry there. A small minority. Most people are thrilled she's finally facing consequences. You'll see." After she left, I tried to feel reassured, but I couldn't shake the worry in the pit of my stomach. What if Barbara was wrong? What if Karen's supporters were more numerous or more dangerous than she thought? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, I came home from work to find red paint splattered across my front door. The word snitch was spray-painted across my garage. My mailbox had been knocked over, and someone had dumped garbage across my front lawn. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone to call the police. But before I could dial, my neighbor George came running over from his house. "Marcus, I saw the whole thing. I got them on my security camera." He was waving his phone excitedly. "3 people, around 2 o'clock this afternoon. I've already called the police and sent them the footage." I felt a surge of relief. "Did you recognize them?" George's face grew grim. "Oh, I recognize them all right. Karan's friends." "Friends. The Hendersons from Maple Street know relation to Barbara and that jackass Tom Willis from the corner house. They're about to find out what happens when you vandalize property in this neighborhood." Within 20 minutes, 2 police cars were parked in my driveway. The officers took my statement, reviewed George's security footage, and assured me that arrests would be made by the end of the day. One of them, a young officer named Davis, looked almost eager. "We've been waiting for someone to finally press charges against these idiots," he said. "They've been pulling stunts like this for years, but most victims are too scared to follow through. Not anymore." Barbara showed up 30 minutes after the police, took one look at my vandalized property, and made a phone call. "Emergency HOA meeting," she said into her phone. "Tonight, 7 o'clock. "No, this can't wait. We have a serious problem." She hung up and turned to me. "Pack a bag. You're staying at my house tonight. I don't want you here alone until we know those vandals are in custody." "Barbara, I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. This is my neighborhood, and I will not allow intimidation tactics. Period." Her tone left no room for argument. I grabbed some clothes and my laptop and followed her to her house. That evening, the HOA community center was packed. I'd never seen so many people at a neighborhood meeting. Barbara had set up chairs for at least 80 people, and every single one was filled. People were standing along the walls. The energy in the room was tense, electric. Barbara called the meeting to order, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. We're here because of a serious incident that occurred today, an act of vandalism and intimidation against one of our newest residents, to explain what had happened to my property, showing photos she'd taken on her phone. The room erupted in angry voices. "This is exactly the kind of behavior we will not tolerate," Barbara continued, her voice rising above the noise. "Karen Mitchell broke the law and is facing the consequences. Anyone who thinks they can harass or intimidate Mr. Chun because he exposed her crimes will face consequences as well." A man in the back stood up. I recognized him from George's description. Tom Willis, one of the vandals. "You can't prove anything," he shouted. And even if someone did mess with his property, maybe he had it coming. Maybe he should have minded his own business. The room exploded. At least 24 people started yelling at Tom simultaneously. George stood up, holding his phone high. "We have you on camera. You idiot! The police already have the footage. You're going to jail!" Tom's face went white. He looked around the room, probably expecting support from Karen's other friends, but he found none. Even the people who might have sympathized with Karen weren't willing to defend vandalism caught on video. Barbara slammed her gavel on the table. "Order, Mr. Willis. You and the Hendersons are hereby fined $10,000 each for violation of HOA rules regarding destruction of property. You have 30 days to pay or face legal action. Furthermore, I'm recommending to the board that we pursue expulsion proceedings against all 3 of you." "You can't do that," Tom protested. "Actually, I can. It's in the bylaws. Section 12, Paragraph 4. Criminal activity that damages community property or threatens community members is grounds for immediate expulsion. I'd suggest you start looking for a new place to live." Tom stormed out, and the Hendersons followed him. The remaining residents broke into applause. After the meeting, dozens of neighbors came up to shake my hand and apologize for what had happened. They assured me that Karen and her friends didn't represent the community. They welcomed me, really welcomed me, in a way that felt genuine and warm. As the crowd thinned out, Barbara pulled me aside. "The police just texted me. They've arrested all 3 vandals. They're being charged with criminal mischief, vandalism, and intimidation. With the video evidence, it's an open and shut case." I felt like I could finally breathe. "Thank you, Barbara, for everything." She smiled and squeezed my shoulder. "That's what neighbors do. Now, let's get you home. We have a front door to repaint." But as we left the community center, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Karen was still out there, awaiting trial. And if her friends were willing to vandalize my property while she was in jail, what would happen when she got out on bail? I was about to find out sooner than I expected, because the next morning I received a letter that made my blood run cold. And this time the threat wasn't just to my property, it was to my life. What do you think was in that letter? Drop your theories in the comments. Have you ever had neighbors turn against you? How did you handle it? Trust me, you won't believe what Karen does next, and neither will the FBI. The envelope was plain white, no return address, just my name and address printed in generic block letters. It had been slipped under my front door sometime during the night. My hands trembled as I opened it, and what I found inside made my blood turn to ice. It was a single sheet of paper with words cut from magazines and newspapers, like something out of a crime thriller. But this wasn't a movie, 'tis was real, and the message was crystal clear. You ruined her life. Now we'll ruin yours. Leave or die. Below the message was a photo of me. Not just any photo, it was from yesterday, taken through my living room window as I sat on my couch. Someone had been watching me. Someone knew exactly where I was and when. I immediately called 911, then Barbara, then Agent Kim. Within 45 minutes, my house was swarming with law enforcement, local police, FBI agents, and even a forensics team dusting the envelope for fingerprints. Barbara arrived before anyone else, still in her bathrobe with a coat thrown over it. Her face was pale with worry. "Marcus, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Scared, but fine." I showed her the letter, now sealed in an evidence bag. She read it, and her jaw clenched. "This crosses a line. This is a direct threat on your life." Agent Kim arrived shortly after, his expression grim as he examined the evidence. "This is federal now. Death threats that cross state lines, and we believe this is connected to Ms. Mitchell's federal case fall under FAA jurisdiction. We're going to find who did this, Mr. Chun. I promise you that." "Could it be Karen?" I asked. "Is she out on bail?" Agent Kim shook his head. "She's still in custody. Her bail hearing is next week, but she could have arranged this from jail. We're going to pull her phone records and visitor logs." "What about Tom Willis and the Hendersons?" Barbara interjected. They just got out on bail yesterday. Agent Kim's eyes sharpened. That's a very good point. We'll bring them in for questioning immediately. The forensics team finished their work and packed up their equipment. One of them, a woman with short red hair, approached Agent Kim with a tablet. We found several partial prints on the envelope, running them through the database. And there's something else, that adhesive on the envelope. It's cheap, generic stuff, but it has traces of perfume. Something floral, expensive. We can narrow that down. Barbara's eyes lit up. Karen wears Chanel No. 5. I've smelled it on her 1,000 times. She practically bathes in it. That would place her at the creation of this letter, even if she didn't deliver it, Agent Kim said. Good. That's very good. After the police and FBI left, Barbara insisted I stay at her house again. You're not staying here alone. Not with someone watching your windows. I didn't argue. I packed another bag and followed her home. My mind racing. How had my life turned into this nightmare? All I wanted was to buy a house and live peacefully. Instead, I was caught in some twisted war with a criminal real estate agent and her deranged followers. That evening, Barbara's husband, Michael, came home from his business trip. It was a tall, distinguished man in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. Barbara filled him in on everything that had happened, and his expression grew darker with every detail. This is unacceptable, he said finally. Marcus, we're going to keep you safe. I have connections with a private security firm. I'm calling them first thing in the morning. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. We're offering. Michael's tone left no room for debate. This happened in our neighborhood, to a resident under our watch. We take care of our own. I felt tears prick my eyes. These people barely knew me, yet they were treating me like family. Thank you. Both of you. I don't know what I'd do without you. Barbara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You'd do the same for us. That's what good neighbors do. The next morning, Agent Kim called with an update. We brought in Tom Willis, David Henderson, and Susan Henderson for questioning. Susan Henderson broke within 20 minutes. What did she say? She didn't create the letter, but she delivered it. She said Karen called her from jail 3 days ago and told her where to find an envelope in her house. Karen's daughter Ashley had the key. Susan picked it up and dropped it at your door around 3 in the morning. So Karen orchestrated this from jail. Absolutely. And that's incredibly stupid on her part. This adds witness intimidation and conspiracy charges to her existing case. Her bail hearing next week. She's not getting bail now, and her potential sentence just went from 20 years to 40. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't. What about Ashley? Is she involved? We're bringing her in this afternoon. If she knowingly participated, she faced charges too. But if Karen manipulated her, which seems likely given what we know about their relationship, she might get immunity in exchange for testimony. The next few days were a blur of police statements, security installations, and constant vigilance. Michael made good on his promise and hired a private security firm. They installed cameras covering every angle of my property, motion sensor lights, and a sophisticated alarm system. They even stationed a guard in an unmarked car on my street for 72 hours. The neighborhood rallied around me in ways I never expected. George organized a watch rotation where neighbors took turns keeping an eye on my house. Rachel started a meal train, bringing dinner every evening so I wouldn't have to worry about cooking. Even people I'd never met before stopped by to introduce themselves and offer support. We've all had run-ins with Karen. One elderly woman named Mrs. Chun told me as she dropped off a casserole. But you're the first person brave enough to stand up to her. You're a hero to us. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a target. But their support meant everything. 5 days after the death threat, Ashley Mitchell showed up at my door. She looked terrible gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes and hair that hadn't been washed in days. The security guard radioed me before letting her approach. Mr. Chun, please, she said, through tears, when I opened the door. I need to talk to you. Just 5 minutes. Barbara, who had been visiting, appeared behind me. Ashley? You shouldn't be here. If the FBI finds out—" "I don't care," Ashley interrupted. "I need him to know the truth. I need someone to know." She looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes. "Can I please come in?" Against my better judgment, I let her in. Barbara stayed close, her phone in hand, ready to call for help if needed. Ashley sat on my couch and broke down completely. "I didn't know," she sobbed. "I swear, I didn't know what she was doing. My mom told me Mrs. Patterson wanted to sell to us. She said it was all arranged. That you had backed out? I had no idea she forged anything until the FBI showed up." "What about the letter?" I asked. "Did you know about the death threat?" Ashley's head snapped up. "What? No. What letter?" Barbara and I exchanged glances. Either Ashley was an incredible actress, or she genuinely had no idea. "Your mother sent me a death threat from jail," I said carefully. "The FBI says Susan Henderson picked it up from your mother's house, using your key." Ashley's face went white. "She called me? 3 days ago, she said she needed Susan to pick up some important documents from her house for her lawyer. She told me to hide the key under the mat. I thought it was for legal papers." "Oh my God." She put her face in her hands. "She used me!" "Again. Ashley," Barbara said gently, "you need to tell this to the FBI. If you cooperate, they might grant you immunity." "I already told them everything I know," Ashley said. "They gave me immunity yesterday. That's why I came here. I needed to apologize in person. My mother has ruined so many lives, and I helped her without even knowing it. I'm so sorry." I looked at this broken woman in front of me and felt an unexpected wave of sympathy. She was a victim too, manipulated by her own mother. "Ashley, this wasn't your fault. Your mother is a master manipulator. She fooled a lot of people. But I should have known. I should have questioned things. She's been getting away with stuff my whole life because I never stood up to her." Ashley wiped her eyes. "Well, I'm standing up now. I'm testifying against her. Everything. Every scheme I ever witnessed. Every lie she told me to repeat. All of it." "That's brave," Barbara said softly. "That takes real courage." Ashley stood to leave. "I just wanted you to know that not everyone in Karen's life supports what she did. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. You deserve your home. You deserve peace. I hope you get it." After she left, Barbara and I sat in silence for a moment. Finally, she spoke. "That girl needs therapy." "Lots of it." "Yeah, I agreed. But at least she's trying to do the right thing now." 2 weeks later, Karen's bail hearing took place. I attended, along with Barbara, Agent Kim, and about 20 other neighborhood residents. Karen was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her blonde hair greasy and unkempt, her makeup-free face showing every one of her 49 years. She saw me in the gallery, and her eyes filled with pure hatred. She mouthed something I couldn't quite make out. But Barbara leaned over and whispered. She said, "You're dead." Charming. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison, reviewed the case file with a deeply furrowed brow. When Karen's attorney requested bail, the judge actually laughed. "It wasn't a pleasant sound. Counselor, your client is charged with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and identity theft. While in custody awaiting this hearing, she orchestrated a death threat against the primary witness in her case. You're asking me to release her into the community?" Karen's attorney, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, tried to argue. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence. She has roots in the community, a daughter who needs her. Her daughter," Judge Morrison interrupted, "has been granted immunity in exchange for testimony against her mother. Her daughter wants nothing to do with her." Next argument. The attorney floundered. "She's a first-time offender. She has a suspended real estate license due to ethics violations. She's been investigated for similar schemes in 2 other states. This is not a first-time offender, Counselor. This is a career criminal who finally got caught." Judge Morrison looked directly at Karen. Ms. Mitch, you are a danger to the community and a significant flight risk. Bail is venir. You will remain in federal custody until your trial. She banged her gavel. Next case. Karen screamed, actually screamed. Right there in the courtroom. This is discrimination. This is because of him. She pointed at me. He doesn't belong here. He ruined everything. 2 marshals grabbed her arms and started dragging her out. She was still screaming. You'll pay for this. All of you. This isn't over. Judge Morrison didn't even look up from her papers. Add contempt of court to her charges. 30 days. As the courtroom doors closed behind Karen's shrieking form, I felt like I could finally breathe. She would stay in jail. She couldn't hurt me anymore. It was over. But as we left the courthouse, Agent Kim pulled me aside. His expression was troubled. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Karen made a phone call yesterday to someone outside the jail. We don't know who yet, but the conversation was ... Concerning... What did she say? She said, and I quote, Plan B is in motion. He won't see it coming. We're trying to figure out what that means. But I wanted you to be aware. Stay vigilant. My blood ran cold. Plan B. What the hell was Plan B? Barbara, who had overheard, put her hand on my shoulder. We'll figure it out. Together. You're not alone in this. I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread settling over me like a dark cloud. Karen was in jail, but somehow she was still pulling strings, and whatever she had planned, it was already in motion. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. What was Plan B? Who was Karen working with? And how could I protect myself from a threat I couldn't even see? The answer would come 3 days later, in the most unexpected and terrifying way possible. And when it did, I would realize that everything up to this point had been just the beginning. Karen's final move would shock everyone, including the FBI, including Barbara, and especially including me, because Plan B wasn't about threats or vandalism or intimidation. Plan B was about making me disappear. What do you think Plan B is? Drop your wildest theories in the comments. Have you ever dealt with someone who wouldn't give up, even when they lost? Trust me, you need to see how this ends. The final confrontation will leave you speechless. 3 days after Karen's bail hearing, I woke up at 2:15 in the morning to the sound of breaking glass. My new security system immediately started blaring. Lights flooding my property. I grabbed my phone and rolled off the bed, pressing myself against the wall as my heart hammered in my chest. Through my bedroom window, I could see a figure in dark clothing running across my backyard toward the creek. The security company was already calling my phone. Mr. Chun, we've detected a breach. Police are on the way. Are you safe? I'm locked in my bedroom. Someone broke my back window. Stay where you are. Officers are 2 minutes out. Those 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. I could hear sounds downstairs, footsteps, things being moved. Whoever had broken in wasn't just running away. They were looking for something, or doing something. Finally, I heard sirens. The footsteps downstairs suddenly rushed toward the back door. More breaking glass. Then silence, except for the wailing of my alarm. Police. Anyone in the house? Make yourself known. I opened my bedroom door. Up here. I'm the homeowner. 3 officers came up the stairs, guns drawn but lowering when they saw me. Are you injured, sir? No, I'm okay. But someone was definitely in my house. We went downstairs together, and what I saw made my blood run cold. My living room had been ransacked, but not in the way you'd expect from a burglary. Nothing was taken. Instead, there were photographs scattered everywhere, dozens of them. All of me. Me at work. Me grocery shopping. Me in my car. Me in my house, through the windows. Someone had been stalking me for weeks, documenting my every move. And in the center of my coffee table, held down by a knife stabbed into the wood, was a note. Last warning. Leave or you're next. Next to the note was a doll that looked disturbingly like me, with a noose around its neck. One of the officers, a veteran cop named Rodriguez, relation to the FBI agent, whistled low. This is escalation. Serious escalation. This person is preparing to act. Act. You mean ... double quotes. I mean this person is planning to kill you, Mr. Chun. This isn't just harassment anymore. This is a credible, imminent threat. Agent Kim arrived 30 minutes later, Barbara right behind him, despite the ungodly hour. She took one look at the scene and immediately got on her phone, calling Michael and several other HOA board members. Agent Kim examined everything with latex gloves, his face growing grimmer by the second. This is professional-level stalking. These photos are high quality, taken with an expensive camera. The positioning, the timing this person has been watching you for at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. But Karen's in jail, I said. She can't be doing this herself. No, but she's clearly coordinating it. Remember that phone call about Plan B? This is it. She hired someone. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I need a full analysis on Karen Mitchell's finances, every transaction for the past 6 months. And I need her complete visitor log and phone records from the jail. Now. Barbara was pacing, fury radiating from her. This ends now. Marcus, you're not staying here another night. You're coming to our house, and you're staying until this psychopath is caught. Barbara, I can't keep imposing. You're not imposing. You're surviving. There's a difference. Her voice softened. Please, Marcus, let us help you. I nodded, too exhausted and scared to argue anymore. By dawn, Agent Kim's team had made a breakthrough. Karen made a wire transfer 3 weeks ago, $5,000 to someone named Derek Miller. We ran his name. He has a record. Assault, stalking, harassment. He's a professional. People hire him to scare their enemies. Where is he now? We're tracking him. His car was spotted on traffic cameras 3 blocks from here at 1:50 this morning. We have units searching the area. Agent Kim looked at me seriously. Mr. Chun, I need you to understand something. This man is dangerous. He's done time for putting someone in the hospital. If Karen paid him $5,000, she didn't pay him to just scare you. She paid him to hurt you, possibly kill you. The room went silent. Barbara grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. I won't let that happen, Agent Kim continued. We're going to catch him, and when we do, Karen's charges are going to include conspiracy to commit murder. She'll never see the outside of a prison cell again. Over the next 48 hours, Barbara's house became command central. FBI agents came and went. The HOA organized a neighborhood watch with 24-hour coverage. Michael hired additional private security. I felt like a prisoner in witness protection, but I was grateful for every precaution. On the 3rd day, the FBI got their break. Derek Miller made a mistake. He used his credit card at a gas station 15 miles away. Within 2 hours, they had him in custody. I watched the arrest on the news with Barbara and Michael. Derek Miller was a hulking man in his 40s, covered in tattoos, with cold, dead eyes. As officers led him to the patrol car, he smiled at the cameras. It was the most chilling thing I'd ever seen. Agent Kim called me an hour later. We got him, and he's talking. Wants a deal. What did he say? Karen paid him $5,000 up front, with another $5,000 promised when the job was done. The job was to make you disappear. His words. He was supposed to make it look like you'd fled town out of fear. He was going to ransack your house, leave threatening notes, and then stage a final confrontation that would end with your death, which he'd dispose of to look like you'd run away. I felt bile rise in my throat. She tried to have me murdered. Yes. And we have everything we need to prove it. Phone records, financial records. His testimony. Karen Mitchell is going away for the rest of her life. The trial came 6 months later. I sat in the courtroom gallery between Barbara and Ashley S. Ashley, who had completely transformed her life in those months. She'd gotten a job, started therapy, and cut all ties with her mother. Karen looked like a shell of her former self. The expensive clothes and perfect makeup were gone, replaced by an ill-fitting prison jumpsuit and hollow eyes. When she saw me, there was no hatred anymore, just emptiness. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: the forged documents, the death threat, Derek Miller's testimony, financial records, everything. Karen's defense attorney tried to argue mental illness, that the stress of her failing real estate career had caused a breakdown. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, I was given the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium, looking at Karen for what I hoped would be the last time. Karen Mitchell tried to steal my home. When that failed, she tried to steal my peace. And when that failed, she tried to steal my life. But she failed at all of it. I'm here in my home, living my life, surrounded by neighbors who have become my family. You tried to destroy me, Karen. But you only destroyed yourself. Karen didn't react. She just stared at the table in front of her. Judge Morrison sentenced her to 48 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Karen would be 74 years old before she could even be considered for release. As the marshals led her away, Karen finally looked at me one last time. Her mouth moved, and I think she said, "I'm sorry," but I couldn't be sure. And honestly, it didn't matter anymore. Derek Miller got 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder and multiple stalking charges. Tom Willis, David Henderson, and Susan Henderson all pled guilty to vandalism and intimidation charges. They received probation and were forced to sell their homes and leave Riverside Estates permanently. That evening, Barbara and Michael threw a celebration dinner at their house. Half the neighborhood attended. George brought his famous barbecue. Rachel made her incredible desserts. Mrs. Choom brought enough Chinese food to feed an army. Ashley showed up too, with a cake she'd baked herself. "I'm not much of a baker," she admitted, "but I wanted to contribute something. To thank all of you for being so kind to me after everything my mother did." "You're not your mother?" Barbara told her firmly. "You're your own person, making your own choices, and you chose right." As the party wound down and people started heading home, I stood on Barbara's back porch with her, looking out at the neighborhood lights twinkling in the darkness. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for everything. I wouldn't have survived this without you." Barbara smiled and put her arm around my shoulders. "That's what neighbors do, Marcus. We look out for each other. We protect each other. You're part of this community now. You always will be. I still can't believe it's really over." "It is. Karen can't hurt anyone anymore. You're safe. Your home is yours. And you have an entire neighborhood full of people who will make sure it stays that way." I looked at her, this woman who had become so much more than just an HOA president. She was a friend, a protector, a hero. "Why did you fight so hard for me? You could have just let the title company sort it out." Barbara was quiet for a moment. "When I was your age, something similar happened to me. A landlord tried to illegally evict me from my apartment because of who I am. Someone stepped in and helped me fight back. A lawyer who took my case pro bono, a neighbor who testified on my behalf, and I promised myself that if I ever saw someone else in that position, I'd do the same." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You deserved justice, Marcus, and I was going to make damn sure you got it." I hugged her then, and she hugged me back. Two people from different generations, different backgrounds, brought together by one woman's evil and bound by the triumph of good over that evil. 6 months later, life had returned to normal. I'd renovated my house, adding the security features as permanent fixtures but also making it truly mine. I hosted my first dinner party and invited the whole neighborhood. My dining room was packed with laughter and conversation. I'd also started volunteering with the HOA, helping Barbara with community events and newcomer orientations. I wanted to make sure that every new resident felt welcomed and protected, the way Barbara had welcomed and protected me. Ashley became a regular presence in the neighborhood, too. She'd gotten a job at a local nonprofit and was thriving. She and I had coffee once a month, and she'd tell me about her therapy breakthroughs and her growing independence. She was building a life free from her mother's shadow. On the one-year anniversary of my closing date, Barbara organized a surprise party at my house. The entire neighborhood showed up with food, drinks, and stories about their own battles with HOA tyranny and difficult neighbors. It became clear that my fight against Karen had inspired others to stand up against injustice in their own lives. As I stood in my backyard, watching my neighbors, my friends, celebrate, I thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the threats, the violence, but also the courage, the solidarity, the justice. I'd bought a house and gained a family. Karen had tried to steal my dream. Instead, she'd given me something but a community that would stand by me no matter what, a home in every sense of the word. And as for Karen, she was exactly where she belonged, paying for her crimes and unable to hurt anyone ever again. Justice had been served. The nightmare was over, and my new life, my real life, had finally begun. So that's my story. From a simple house purchase to a federal criminal case involving forgery, fraud, stalking, and attempted murder. Karen Mitchell is now serving 48 years in federal prison. Derek Miller got 20 years. And the vandals, they're gone from the neighborhood forever. I'm still in my house. Still in Riverside Estates. Still surrounded by the best neighbors anyone could ask for. Barbara remains HOA President, and she's now become one of my closest friends. Ashley completely turned her life around and has become a vocal advocate for victims of parental manipulation. If you're dealing with someone like Karen Zumwan who thinks they can bully you, intimidate you, or steal from you, I want you to know something. Stand up. Fight back. Document everything. Find your Barbara, your ally, who will stand with you when things get tough. Justice might not be quick, but it's real, and it's worth fighting for. Thank you for following my story. Drop a comment if you've had your own HOA nightmare, and let me know how it turned out. Hit that like button if you believe in justice, and subscribe because I'll be sharing updates on Karen's appeals. Spoiler alert, they're not going well. This is Marcus Chun. Finally, at peace in the house. I almost lost. Take care, everyone, and remember, never let the Karens of the world steal your dreams.